Happy New Year, John. How you doing?
Oh, happy New Year 2025 to everybody out
Yeah.
there. Man, 2025. It seems so long. I remember my son was born in 2000. It's like, man,
That was 25 years
2025.
ago.
That was 25 years ago. Yeah, he'll turn 25 on January 11th.
That's
And it's
weird.
just like, where did the time go? Where did the time go? I know you feel that way too, because
Right out the window.
I remember seeing your twins my first summer, first training camp with the Texans. They were they were in a twin troller, and now they're just out and about living life,
AKA
dominating.
the aircraft carrier.
Yeah,
Hold
exactly.
on. We need to turn. Boop, boop.
That thing was enormous, but it had to be.
Yeah.
You had two kids in there.
My sweethearts. Yeah, they are. They're 11 now, and they'll
It's
be
amazing.
12 at the end of May. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to you watching, listening. The three of us, John, me, and you, we're going to have a nice little time here today because the end of the regular season is here. You have at least two more football games to go, and if things go your way, you're going to play much deeper into January and maybe even February. So, rest is on the docket, whether it's a full game, a half game, a quarter game, doesn't matter. You've gotten more rest because you played on a Wednesday
Yep.
and you've had those extra 3-4 days to get some time for you. So that's been a good thing. I think that's going to help things out. But by the way, this is in the lab presented by Xfinity, in case you were wondering. Anyways, the value of a mini buy. We say that mini buy term usually when you're playing on a Thursday and you get that weekend off. Oh, it's like a mini buy. We've said it many, many times over the last decade, really longer than that even. But what do you think the benefit of that mini buy might be? Now, it coincides with the holidays, but I imagine some self-scouting has continued to go on, and you get a little bit more time to do that. Some scouting for who your potential playoff opponents might be has happened as well. Could be the Steelers, could be the Chargers, the Broncos, maybe. We don't know. But those are the likely candidates, likely suspects. But self-scouting over this mini buy, because there's a lot of things you can fix, John. There's a lot of things you can get better
Oh
at
yeah,
right
yeah,
now.
absolutely. I mean, you should be self-scouting all the way to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing for the players, Drew, at this point of the year, and you and I have talked about this at times over the years, you're in this building in week 15 on, week 14 on. Stand on a service level when the offensive lineman and defensive lineman are getting out of their meetings and walking to the locker room. They are barely able to get down the hallway. Like, it is, I mean, they've got to think to take a step. I mean,
Yeah.
they're beat up that much. I'll never forget seeing DJ Reader in his second year. So his second year was 2016, and he and Will Fork were playing together. But now DJ was a true starter, and he was staying on the field for probably 85% of snaps. And he was getting double teamed on almost every snap. And I just remember seeing him. He had slides on. He was going on a hallway. And it was taking him. I was all the way down by the radio studio. He was all the way by the auditorium, team auditorium.
Yeah.
And there wasn't much room from the team auditorium to the cafeteria. There's a little distance from here to the cafeteria. I nearly beat him to the cafeteria. I could see him, so I kind of picked up my walk a little bit so I could say hey to him. And I got near him, and I was just like, man, you're beat up. He's like, yeah. But I'll play on Sunday. Like, he was going to play. I was respecting him for that. But those guys are so beat up. So if you give them 3 extra days of rest,
Yeah.
I mean, that's enormous to even get your body back to just some sense of normalcy. I mean, even getting it back to 85%, down from 65%, I think is big. So for the players, I think there's definitely that rest aspect. For the coach, I think it's a mental break.
Mm-hmm.
Coaches need to have that mental break. When you've had the games the Texans have had, the close finishes against good teams and the intense games and short weeks and primetime games, you need a mental break for a couple days. You need to check out. And I know what, and I mean, not even coaching or playing, but just being around the team. When we had that weekend, last weekend was the first weekend for me that I had Saturday and Sunday off. There had been probably 75% of the weekends this fall where I worked both Saturday and Sunday with a college game that I was calling and then our game. Or we would have, or I was moving, and that was always tough
Right.
because and that was obviously a self-inflicted one, travel to away games. But last week was the first time I had a Saturday and Sunday, and I just checked out. I watched Red Zone. I watched NFL games. I went to my favorite bakery and got my sourdough bread. I mean, I did all those kind of things that I just checked out.
Yeah.
And there's a part of me that would love for this team to just check out for a couple days, and how much you feel refreshed from that to charge into the last part of this season.
You took us off in a tangent, and I'm going to go tangent off of that tangent because you brought up Grave Dave, DJ Reader, one of my favorite Texans ever.
Yes.
He's now a Detroit Lion, an important part of that defense, and they're still humming along, man. They're really, really good. But anyways, before the game that they played here, which Texans had so much, they were so close.
Oh, that game.
But pregame, I'm on our sideline, the Texans sideline, around about the 20, and I see him come out to stretch, and he's doing the high legs, and I just kind of get in a spot where I know, like, I can see him and he can see me, and when I see him kind of scan the crowd to see, I just go like a nice Forrest Gump type of wave, and he kind of smiles and stops and does this.
Yeah.
And so it was nice to see DJ. And then I got a video from DP, our old pal, DP Sidhu, about 2 days later, because they come towards that end zone, and I was like, okay, I'll get over there and maybe we'll get a bro hug or whatever.
Yeah.
And I get kind of close, and they're doing these one-on-one drills with their coach. And off to the side, Melissa Stark is interviewing, so she was interviewing somebody, and I'm like looking like this. It looks like I'm looking at Melissa Stark like a total creep. And hey, she's very good at what she does. She's very pretty. Yeah. But I was just trying to get a bro hug from DJ Reader. But she said DP clipped this video that somebody else had taken and then like zoomed in on the corner where I was, and it's like the leering Drew Dougherty looks.
Lurking. So, yeah. We used to say that about our friend Billy Lucci. You're lurking.
Leering. That's and lurking. Too funny. Yeah. But it was all for DJ Reader because I'm a big, you and I both saw him in Cincinnati a year ago when the Texans won that one and got to say hello to him then. So congrats to DJ. Hope you go all the way to the Super Bowl and you lose to the Texans in the Super Bowl. But yeah.
The second time around. Yeah.
Right.
That's a game. I feel like that Detroit game is one that left a stain that hasn't completely gone.
Yeah, it stung.
Yeah, you think about what that could have meant. Probably you win that game, you're definitely not losing to Tennessee.
Yeah.
You're probably going a little bit of a run maybe and see where you are at that point. But you know what? You are what you are right now.
Right.
You're 9-7 and you've got the division wrapped up. And now you play the Tennessee Titans, who beat you in your building. You've got this road division streak going on that has been phenomenal, and you have no idea who's going to play in that game.
Yeah,
you think everybody, but are there guys that are playing through nicks and bumps and bruises that could use a weekend off? Probably. Could every guy use the weekend off? Probably, but you got to fill out a 48-man game day roster, so it's going to be interesting on Sunday.
Yes, it is. We're going to talk about Sunday. We're going to get into our Cream of the Crop Award winners, who we think will be a Cream of the Crop Award winner. But before we do, John, we got to raise a glass. So let's raise a Modelo to a new year, new beginnings, and the promise of many, many good things. We don't know where this year's going to take us, where this postseason is going to take us, but it's good to be in the postseason because you and I and Texans fans for many, many years, most recently 20, 21, 22, didn't get to worry about January football.
That's right.
So I'm all for it. I'm raising a glass to that. Now, let's move on. Our good pal, Randy Macho Man Savage.
The cream of the crop.
Thank you, Macho Man. Yes, it is time for that Cream of the Crop Award winner. And, interestingly enough, we took a break for Christmas last week, and there was no Cream of the Crop Award winner because we didn't do it. And maybe that's why the Texans lost. So
that's a great point.
We're going to get the mojo back, John. And this week, Cream of the Crop, my choice will be the interior offensive line. You've made that choice many times this season, and they've got to come up big because you are facing a pair of monsters if they do play in Jeffrey Simmons and Devondre Sweat. Those guys wrecked you in this last game that they played here. The Titans beat the Texans. They beat them up, and it was bad. Those two were key reasons why. So you got to keep them free and clear of CJ Stroud. You got to keep them free and clear of your run game.
Yep.
Because you want to generate some run game, get that thing going as you get into the playoffs. Because I would imagine Bobby Slowick wants to show some things that are different to opposing defenses and maybe hold some things back as well. But you got to get things going forward in a forward direction, and that doesn't happen without your guys, guard, center, guard, whoever they may be. Like we mentioned, resting, starting, and so on and so forth. Whoever they may be, you got to play really, really well there to get things cracking for 2025, John.
You are on it. You know how I think. We've been around each other to know enough to know that Jeffrey Simmons and Devondre Sweat have been absolutely awesome. Awesome together, awesome individually. And they're a tough out. So no matter who's playing in there, those two have got to be controlled. And the crazy thing was, they really weren't getting loose on you in the game against the Titans until the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And then they started doing things inside and wrecking your pass rush and sacking CJ, and then the whole thing kind of fell apart. I'm going to go with the guy that if we did – so after the game against the Ravens, Omar Majub, who came over, who's our PR superstar, came over and was like, he looked at me, and I always get a play after the game. You know that.
Right.
He looked at me, and he was like, Townsend?
Yeah.
I was like, nah, don't worry about it. We're just not going to have one because it was that kind of game. The only 2 points were scored by the guy that I am making my cream of the cropper this week, and that's Kamari Lassiter.
Oh, that's awesome, yeah.
And I think Kamari Lassiter, I remember back to draft night, and I remember they said his name, and I got excited about what he could do in this defense. I thought he'd play the nickel, and Corey Unlund, defense pass game coordinator, sat in with me and Mark 2 weeks ago, I think, and we were asking about Kamari, and I asked him, I said, was the plan, basically got to the point of, was the plan originally to put Kamari at the nickel and then let him play there, and then he might go out the perimeter corner or maybe leave him at the nickel? He says that was the plan. And then he just was like, we had to have him on the field every single play. And so then we moved into the perimeter corner, and obviously the rest is history. But he's played some nickel as they've kind of moved some things around, and he does a hell of a job because he's a tremendous cover corner, and he is really, really physical. Yeah. Like he's the prototype nickel in this defense because he blitzes pretty well. He tackles exceptionally well. He can cover man-to-man on guys inside, which is where you think you lose with a kind of linebacker mentality like nickel, but he tackles well and covers well. So there's a part of me that thinks, maybe this offseason the Texans look at a guy that can play the perimeter corner they feel comfortable with, and they just leave Kamari at the nickel. Or they get Jalen Petrie back healthy. Kamari can stay outside. Either way, I think they've got some options once they get everybody healthy. But for me, Kamari Lassiter is going to be that guy. He's got to help on the run game. Covering Calvin Ridley is always a challenge. Mm-hmm. Again, we go back to, I don't know how many guys are going to rest, how many guys you want to rest. Derek Stingley has played, I think Sting's played every single game. Maybe Sting sits a half. Well, that puts, Kamari on the field for the full game with Jeff Okudah or whomever. So I'm going with Kamari Lassiter. I think
it's a good one.
These rookies have played extremely well this year, probably better than anybody imagined. The fact that you've got your top 4 draft picks end up being starters basically on your team. And not only starters, but really solid impact contributors. So I'm going to go with Kamari Lassiter for this one.
John, I wish there was a unit of measurement you could use for confidence. There's not, but before the season started, had a chance to, I think it was during OTAs, had a chance to interview Kamari one-on-one. I wasn't at the draft, and he wasn't really at the draft either because he was not a day one pick, but I just remember being struck by his confidence. And a lot of time, look, you don't get to the NFL if you're not confident. Every guy we've ever talked to's got confidence in abundance, but his is different, and his is not any false bravado either. I can't remember what the question was, but it was something along the lines of, when did you know that you belonged and you could play in the NFL? Yeah. And he was not being cocky when he said these, but he said, probably my freshman year when I got to campus at my first practice at Georgia, because I looked around and I was starting and everybody else around me I knew would be playing in the NFL and probably being a Pro Bowler. I'm paraphrasing what he said. But basically, he's known since then. And he thought he was good going in, but that's cemented and solidified. Because think about who he was playing with back in the day. I mean, that first time he was
First
doing
and
it,
second
John,
rounders across that roster,
golly,
all
I mean,
over the place.
stars. But he was holding his own with those guys, holding his own against those guys. And I just remember when he walked out of that meeting, I didn't know what he was going to do on the field. I had no idea, but I thought that guy's really confident.
Yep.
That guy. I mean, I've seen confident guys, but not like that.
Yeah,
it was hard. And I wish you could quantify it. Like he's got 98 rampules of confident. I mean, you can't. But whoever, if you had to put everybody side by side, he's probably up at the tippy top on the Texans as far as confidence. And you need that in the corner.
What's funny you say about that is, I remember talking to him, felt the same way. Then we talked to Kalen Bullock when Kalen was drafted.
I believe it's Bullock.
Bullock.
He pronounced it Bullock.
He did pronounce it Bullock.
And I thought, what have I been doing?
Bullock, yeah. So
Kalen Bullock.
Kalen Bullock. Anyways, Kalen gets drafted, and I remember talking to him, and I asked him about being in Houston, meeting, what was it like, all that kind of stuff. And, did you get on the board, drop some plays? Oh, yes, sir, man, I killed that. I mean, I was like, boy, he is supremely confident.
Yeah.
And then
in a different sort of way, like a mellow.
It wasn't like, hey, I'm going to be in the Pro Bowl 9 times out of the next 6 years. It was, but you're very self-assured. And then I thought about Kamari. I was like, that could be kind of fun. And those two are Kareem and J-Joe. Like, they travel everywhere together. The two of them together, best of friends. It's really
when
cool
I was
see.
Walking in today, it's New Year's Day. I was walking in around 30-ish, and I'm not flexing like I'm some hard, lunch pail worker. Anyways, when I was walking in down the hall, those two were walking in the locker room together. Can't remember what they were saying, but they're with each other. They're hanging out
all the time.
Yeah.
Where you see 4, you see 21, and vice versa. It was like the same thing with Kareem and J-Joe. Wherever you saw 25, you saw 24. All the time for years.
What a nice young secondary. Those two.
Yep.
Petrie, Stingley, cooking
Scott
with gas.
And still got to keep everybody healthy.
Amen. All right. So those are our cream of the croppers. Tennessee, going to be a fun trip. Let's close out the season with a bang. Lots of Texans seasons regular seasons have ended in Nashville. This one will end in Nashville regular season wise. Let's end on a high note and let's get 2025 started the right way. Hey, always love doing this with you, John.
Yeah,
always love doing this with you. Thank you for listening and for watching. We appreciate it. Couldn't do it without you yourself. So until next time, we're talking about a playoff game next week. But until then, so long. And this is In the Lab presented by Xfinity.